Nobody expected this to be the moment everything fell apart. Not King Harris himself, still riding the high of his defiant diss tracks and provocative posts. Not his father T.I., who had already expressed quiet regret over letting his sons dive so deep into the feud with 50 Cent. Not his mother Tiny, who had watched the family get dragged into the crossfire. Not the fans who had followed every viral rant, every Instagram live meltdown, and every boundary-pushing moment. And certainly not the tight-knit circle around King, who believed his secrets were locked away too tightly to ever surface. But the second 50 Cent pulled back the curtain and exposed King's darkest secret, the one he had buried for years, the one he swore would never see daylight. His entire world flipped upside down in an instant. The revelation didn't come wrapped in a subtle meme or a vague caption. It arrived blunt, calculated, and devastating, turning a heated rap beef into something far more personal and destructive. Within minutes of 50 Cent dropping that bombshell online, everything changed. King's girlfriend, the one person he believed would stand by him through every scandal, every emotional outburst, and every reckless decision, didn't hesitate. She didn't demand explanations, argue, or give him space to spin a narrative. She left instantly, silently, and completely. No dramatic confrontation. No final goodbye text. Just gone, as if the weight of the truth had severed whatever remained of their bond in one clean cut. Sources close to the situation painted a picture of King in the early morning hours, stunned and pacing his room like a caged animal. His hands shook as he dialed her number repeatedly. Calls went straight to voicemail. Texts sat unread. She had cut him off so surgically that it felt premeditated, as though she had been holding her breath for months, waiting for the confirmation of what she had already begun to suspect deep down. The truth, once public, wasn't petty gossip or an embarrassing childhood story. It was dark, dangerous, and heavy enough to force anyone to reevaluate everything they thought they knew about the person they loved. It wasn't something she could overlook, forgive, or compartmentalize. Not publicly, not privately, and not even out of lingering affection or obligation. Industry insiders whispered that 50 Cent hadn't simply exposed a flaw or dug up old dirt for clout. He had shattered the carefully constructed mask King wore every single day. Behind the loud bravado, the tough guy online persona, the endless need to prove himself untouchable in the shadow of his famous parents, there existed something far more troubling. When King's girlfriend finally saw the full, unfiltered picture of who he really was beneath the noise and the performances, she reached one devastating conclusion. She didn't truly know the man she had been dating, defending, and supporting through thick and thin. What made the internet explode wasn't solely the content of the secret itself, though it was shocking enough to dominate timelines for days. It was the unexpected twist in why she walked away so decisively. Her decision wasn't driven only by the gravity of what 50 revealed. It was amplified by who had revealed it. 50 Cent, the very figure King had repeatedly provoked, taunted, and disrespected in the most personal ways possible. The man whose late mother King had mocked, whose pain King had turned into content. Turning a private shame into a public spectacle at the hands of that particular enemy made the humiliation unbearable. It wasn't just exposure, it was emasculation on a global stage. The collapse didn't begin the night 50 Cent hit post. It didn't start with the viral caption, the screenshot, or the comment sections erupting in shock and judgment. The foundation had been cracking quietly for months, long before the world caught wind of the truth. It started behind closed doors, where King had been juggling a web of lies, deep-seated insecurities, and a double life he convinced himself no one would ever fully piece together. For months, King's girlfriend had sensed something was off. She wasn't the type to accuse wildly or snoop through his phone. She kept her growing suspicions to herself, observing in silence while offering support. But the signs accumulated: the increasing emotional distance, the sudden flashes of temper over minor things, the controlling grip on details of their time together. Late-night phone calls he always took outside, stepping away with a tense jaw and lowered voice. Random disappearances explained away as handling business or studio time. Small disagreements that ballooned into him pacing the floor, chest heaving as if he were barely containing an internal storm no one else could see. She held on anyway. She told herself it was the pressure of the spotlight, the weight of being T.I.'s son in an industry that loved to compare and criticize, or simply the turbulence of a young man trying to carve his own identity. She believed her patience and love could eventually smooth the rough edges, that he would grow out of whatever turbulent phase this was. She wanted to be the calm center in his chaos, the one stable thing when everything else felt performative and unstable. What she didn't know, what King never allowed her to fully see, was the crushing weight of the secret he carried. He told himself he was protecting her by staying silent, shielding her from a truth too ugly and complicated to share. In reality, that silence was slowly poisoning the relationship from within. The one person he thought he was sparing ended up hurting the most when the facade finally cracked wide open under 50 Cent's spotlight. Meanwhile, 50 Cent had been watching the situation develop from a distance. Not out of fatherly concern at first, but because King kept poking the bear with increasing aggression. Every name drop in a post, every reckless video, every time King positioned himself as some street-savvy heir apparent while disrespecting 50's most sacred wound, his late mother Sabrina Jackson, 50 took note. Warnings filtered in from multiple directions, mutual connections in Atlanta, people in the broader industry circles, and even a few voices within King's own camp who saw the trajectory as dangerous. "Stop," they urged. "You're playing with fire you don't understand." King brushed it all off. He believed his secret remained locked away, known only to a tight handful of people sworn to secrecy. He underestimated 50 Cent's legendary reach, his network of information, and his cold patience when provoked. 50 doesn't just respond in the moment, he waits, gathers, and strikes with precision. The first visible fracture appeared weeks before the public detonation. King's girlfriend accidentally overheard a heated phone call one evening. King was downstairs, his voice low but edged with raw panic. "You weren't supposed to say anything. You promised. You have no idea what you've done." She froze at the top of the stairs, heart racing. This wasn't the confident, sometimes arrogant King who performed for cameras. This was someone scared, desperate, and unraveling at the seams. When she confronted him later, he shut it down immediately. "Don't worry about it. I got it under control." But the cracks were widening, and he clearly didn't. Behind the scenes, the chain reaction had already started. Someone King trusted implicitly had slipped, perhaps a loose word in the wrong conversation, a moment of weakness or simple carelessness. That small piece of information traveled quietly from person to person until it landed in the worst possible hands, 50 Cent's. King remained oblivious that it was circulating, drawing closer, but his girlfriend felt the shift acutely. He became more paranoid, obsessively checking his phone, locking doors that once stayed open, and pulling away emotionally in ways that left her feeling lonely even when they were together. Whispers from those around him confirmed it. King was off balance, not himself, hiding something massive that was beginning to consume him. Then it happened, sudden, brutal, and inescapably public. While King was on Instagram Live, performing his usual untouchable persona for his audience, 50 Cent struck. First came a cryptic post, a carefully chosen photo paired with a caption vague enough to dodge immediate legal issues, but pointed enough that anyone paying attention knew exactly who the target was. Minutes later, the hammer dropped fully. 50 followed up with King's name attached, a damning screenshot or voice note clip, and a single, piercing line that ripped through the entertainment world like wildfire. The internet didn't just react, it detonated. What had been a back and forth of diss tracks, mother jabs, and family photos escalated into something far darker and more consequential. For King Harris, the cost of poking one of hip-hop's most calculated veterans suddenly became painfully clear. The secret was out, the relationship was over, and the carefully built image of defiance lay in pieces. In the unforgiving arena of public scrutiny, some lines crossed don't just spark beef, they end chapters entirely. The fallout was immediate and merciless. King's phone exploded with notifications, hundreds of texts from panicked friends, frantic voice messages, and a relentless flood of comments under every post. Fans and onlookers filled timelines with questions, speculation, memes, and hot takes. Some expressed shock, others rushed to judgment, while a vocal minority tried to defend him by framing the exposure as a calculated, vindictive attack by 50 Cent. But for King's girlfriend, the moment 50 Cent laid the truth bare marked a definitive end. It wasn't just the content of the secret that shattered her. It was the layered betrayal, discovering that the man she had stood by had hidden something so dark, while simultaneously watching that hidden truth get weaponized by the very person King had spent months antagonizing and provoking. She didn't need additional proof. She didn't want long explanations or tearful apologies. The version of King she thought she loved had been exposed as someone capable of carrying a level of darkness she had never imagined possible. And the humiliating fact that 50 Cent, of all people, had been the one to drag it into the public light only deepened the wound. In her eyes, it transformed a private failure into a global spectacle, stripping away any remaining illusion of safety or trust in their relationship. In the days that followed, the internet continued to dissect every angle with ruthless efficiency. Comment sections split into camps. Some insisted King was a victim of targeted character assassination in the middle of a rap beef, while others argued he had brought the consequences on himself through relentless provocations, grave taunts, and disrespect toward 50 Cent's late mother. Cultural observers weighed in on generational clashes, the dangers of clout chasing, and the thin line between performing toughness and hiding real damage. Yet for those closest to the couple, the real tragedy played out far away from the viral noise, in the quiet devastation behind closed doors. A relationship that had weathered intense public scrutiny, family pressures, leaked arguments, and the constant weight of fame could not survive this level of exposure and betrayal. She walked away not purely out of anger, but from a clear-headed instinct for self-preservation. Staying would have meant tying her future to a version of King that no longer felt authentic or safe. King was left to confront the wreckage largely alone. In the early hours, he paced rooms restlessly, staring at his phone as unanswered calls stacked up. The bravado he had projected so aggressively online offered no protection against this kind of personal loss. His carefully guarded secret had not only stripped away his privacy, but had cost him the one person who had consistently believed in him when the rest of the world seemed ready to dismiss or mock him. Somewhere amid the chaos and spiraling thoughts, a harsh lesson began to sink in. Some secrets, once dragged into daylight, do not merely damage reputations or spark temporary scandals. They can destroy the very foundations people build their lives upon. The firestorm 50 Cent ignited showed no signs of dying down, with no clear resolution in sight. What had originated as a back-and-forth between two rappers, sparked by Versa's tensions, family jabs, diss tracks, and deeply personal mother-related disses, had escalated into something far more destructive. It exposed cracks that ran much deeper than any bar, caption, or Instagram carousel. For King Harris, the personal fallout continued unfolding, serving as a sobering reminder that in the unforgiving world of fame, feuds, and constant visibility, the things we desperately hide often carry the power to hurt far more than the things we say out loud. That was the precise moment King's darkest secret burst fully into the open. The mask he had worn so carefully for years finally cracked wide open under the weight of public scrutiny. Years of meticulously constructed lies and compartmentalization came crashing down in one brutal, unrelenting wave. King's girlfriend sat frozen in stunned silence for nearly half an hour, staring at her phone screen. She replayed the clip 50 Cent had posted over and over, refreshing the comments as they grew increasingly vicious and speculative with each scroll. Friends flooded her direct messages with urgent, overlapping questions. Did you know about this? Is this real? Is this why he's been so erratic and distant lately? She felt physically ill, a wave of nausea mixing with the sharp sting of betrayal. The person captured in that raw exposure, the truth 50 Cent had deliberately unleashed for the world to see, bore almost no resemblance to the king she believed she knew. This wasn't the confident, sometimes arrogant young man who performed toughness for the cameras. This wasn't the partner she had defended fiercely against critics or stood beside through family drama and public pressure. Her heart didn't just break over the secret itself. It shattered because he had hidden it from her so completely and for so long. He had allowed her to invest emotionally in a version of him that was largely fabricated, a front she now realized had never been fully real. As she sat there with tears streaming down her face, struggling to process the depth of the deception that had spanned their entire relationship, her phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't another desperate attempt from King. It wasn't a concerned friend checking in or even a cruel troll piling on. The message came from an unexpected source, a woman who had once dated someone powerful in the broader industry ecosystem. Someone who had personally endured the dangerous fallout from secrets just like this one, secrets that carried real stakes, real risks and real consequences. The text was short, direct, and impossible to dismiss. Leave him now before this gets worse. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. When King's name flashed across her screen moments later and she heard his voice breaking through the phone line, begging, crying, pleading for her to stay and give him one chance to explain, something inside her shifted permanently. She wasn't walking away solely because of what he had done or witnessed in the past. She was leaving because of what the secret was tied to, because of who else was entangled in it, and because of the ominous undertones 50 Cent had deliberately dropped in his posts and lives. Because the danger now circling King could very easily extend to anyone standing too close. As she blocked his number, wiped the tears from her face, and began quietly packing her belongings, she whispered words no one else would ever hear. I don't want to die for someone else's secret. King Harris had already been spiraling since the initial public exposure by 50 Cent. His emotional state had grown increasingly fragile with each passing hour of online commentary and private fallout. But the true breaking point didn't arrive until the moment his girlfriend actually walked out the door. That departure wasn't simple heartbreak for him. It felt like final, undeniable condemnation from the universe. It felt like the entire world was collectively affirming that the ugly, exposed version of him 50 Cent had revealed was the only one anyone truly believed existed anymore. He kept calling her relentlessly, sending long strings of text messages pleading for just one conversation, one opportunity to salvage whatever fragments remained. Every call went straight to voicemail. Every message stayed on delivered, never flipping to read. He wasn't raging or lashing out publicly in the explosive way the internet had come to expect from his tough, defiant persona. Instead, he appeared reduced to a terrified young man, desperately clinging to the one relationship that had once made him feel truly seen and human beneath all the performance. The silence from her end only amplified his isolation. Yet the deeper, more inescapable truth continued to gnaw at him relentlessly. She hadn't left solely because of the secret itself. She had left because she had begun to piece together who else knew about it, and who else had a vested, calculating interest in keeping it buried at all costs. The instant 50 Cent dragged the matter fully into daylight, every shadowy figure connected to that secret stirred back to life with renewed urgency. The powerful individuals who preferred to operate in silence, the silent partners, the unseen manipulators, they all became acutely alert once again. King's secret wasn't merely a personal failing, a youthful indiscretion, or a hidden source of shame. It was something far more dangerous that someone with real power and reach had been safeguarding for him, not purely out of loyalty or affection, but for cold, strategic self-preservation. Months earlier, Something irreversible had taken place behind closed doors, something dark, something that crossed decisively into illegal territory. King wasn't the primary architect or the one who carried out the act. He hadn't masterminded it or executed the details, but he had been present. He had witnessed enough to become a significant liability. The situation involved a man who preferred to move without drawing any unnecessary attention, a figure far more perilous than 50 Cent, T.I., or anyone else in King's immediate celebrity orbit. This individual had extended a form of protection to King in the past, not from genuine kindness or mentorship, but from calculated self-interest. King had unknowingly benefited from a shield woven together from influence, money, connections, and quiet intimidation tactics. He hadn't fully grasped the depth of who was truly behind that protection until 50 Cent methodically tore the veil away. 50 Cent hadn't exposed the secret purely for entertainment, clout, or simple revenge against King alone. He had done it as strategic payback against the bigger, more dangerous figure that King was unintentionally shielding through his silence. The moment the truth surfaced publicly, panic rippled outward through invisible channels. King wasn't the only one rattled to his core. The dangerous man who had once helped clean up or contain the aftermath of King's peripheral involvement now faced a legitimate, escalating threat. King knew too much, and in his current emotional state, volatile, increasingly unstable, and under intense public pressure, he represented a major risk. Emotional people pushed to the edge tend to talk. They leak details. They break. The threats began subtly at first. A text arrived from an unknown blocked number. "You've said enough." Then another followed shortly after. "Don't let 50 push you into talking more." King kept these messages hidden from everyone around but those closest to the situation noticed the visible change in his demeanor, the fear flickering behind his eyes, the way he stopped sleeping properly, barely ate, and flinched at every new notification or unexpected sound. He was no longer primarily afraid of 50 Cent's online jabs, memes, or public trolling. He had become terrified of the man lurking in the background, the one with far more to lose if King ever fully cracked and decided to speak everything he knew. 50 Cent understood that precise vulnerability with surgical clarity. The following night, he went live once again and delivered a single, chilling line that sent ripples of unease throughout the industry. "If the boy tells the full story, some grown men going to be sick." The internet erupted in speculation and theories. King spiraled even deeper into panic. His now ex-girlfriend, quietly piecing the fragments together from a safe distance, realized with cold clarity that this wasn't about a mere personal indiscretion or a fixable youthful mistake. King was carrying a volatile, explosive truth capable of ruining multiple powerful lives if it ever fully unraveled. Staying anywhere near him meant risking entanglement in something that could quickly turn lethal. In the end, the original rap beef, rooted in Verza's disputes, family disrespect, and personal wounds involving dead mothers, had morphed into something unrecognizable. What began as words exchanged for attention and dominance had uncovered layers of real danger, hidden complicity, and life-altering consequences. For King Harris, the cost of his provocations had escalated far beyond lost relationships or damaged reputation. The exposure forced him to confront not only his past actions, but the dangerous company his secrets had kept. And for everyone watching the saga unfold in real time, it served as a stark reminder that in the world of high-stakes fame and feuds, some truths, once unleashed, carry consequences that no amount of bravado, diss tracks, or apologies can easily contain. The shadow in the hallway belonged to a man who wasn't merely powerful or well-connected. He was untouchable. For years, he had quietly shielded King Harris, not out of any genuine affection, loyalty, or mentorship, but because King's continued silence served a cold, calculated purpose. As long as the young man stayed quiet, stayed in line, and kept his emotions in check, the protective barrier held firm. The moment King began to waver, posting reckless content, snapping during Instagram lives, showing visible cracks in his tough persona. The shield started to fracture. And when 50 Cent publicly exposed the buried secret, that shield was torn away entirely, leaving King vulnerable in ways he had never imagined. Another buzz vibrated against his thigh. Blocked number again. 2 stark words glowed on the screen. Stay quiet. King's hand trembled as he deleted the message instantly, terrified that even a fleeting glance at his lock screen might expose him further. But he couldn't delete the terror clawing at his chest, tightening around his ribs like invisible chains. He grabbed his jacket, desperate for air, desperate to move, desperate to escape the walls that suddenly felt like a tightening trap. Heart pounding, he yanked the door open. Someone was already waiting in the dimly lit hallway. It was him, the betrayer, the man who had pretended to mentor King, offering guidance and street wisdom while quietly funneling information to 50 Cent, and far worse, to the dangerous figure who quietly ran significant portions of Atlanta's underground networks. The same man who had reportedly helped engineer the swift exit of King's girlfriend. King froze in the doorway, blood draining from his face. "Why are you here?" King whispered, his voice barely audible, cracking under the weight of fear and disbelief. The man didn't smile. He didn't raise his voice or issue theatrical threats. He simply stared with calm, unblinking eyes and said, "You should have kept your mouth shut." Rage and fear collided violently inside King. "I did keep my mouth shut. You're the one who told him. You're the one who ruined everything, my relationship, my life." The man stepped closer, his voice low and steady, almost clinical. "You were spiraling. You were too emotional, too unpredictable. You were one heated live session away from blurting out the wrong detail to the wrong audience. And if you had slipped even once, it wouldn't have been your girlfriend walking out the door. It would have been your family burying you." King's stomach lurched violently. "So you exposed me first. You fed it to 50 Cent. A calm, almost regretful nod. "To control the damage." The words hit King like a physical blow. Control the damage. In this man's eyes, King was no longer a person, a mentee, or even a young man struggling under fame's pressure. He was a liability to be managed, a problem to be contained before it spiraled out of control. King stumbled backward, the hallway seeming to tilt beneath his feet, as the full weight of the betrayal settled in. "What did 50 Cent even post?" King demanded, voice rising despite himself. "Why would you let him expose that of all things?" The man looked at him with something close to disappointment, maybe even a flicker of pity. "You still don't understand what you saw that night." King swallowed hard, throat dry. "I didn't see anything, I just—" "Yes, you did." The interruption was sharp and final. "You saw something you were never supposed to witness. Something that ties a very powerful man directly to an illegal operation. Something that could take down half the city and everyone connected, if the wrong people ever connected the dots." King's breath caught in his throat. That night, the one he had shoved so far into the darkest corners of his mind that he sometimes convinced himself it was nothing more than a bad dream, flooded back in vivid, unforgiving detail. The warehouse he had no business being near. The shadows moving through the dim, flickering light. The sounds he still couldn't unhear. The brief but unmistakable glimpse of faces he was never meant to recognize. He had tried desperately to forget, to bury it beneath layers of bravado, online defiance, diss tracks, and distractions. But 50 Cent hadn't forgotten. And now the man standing in front of him had weaponized that buried memory with surgical precision. King's legs felt weak, knees threatening to buckle. "You set this whole thing in motion." "I redirected it," the man corrected coolly. "You were going to crack eventually. Better it happens on our terms than his. Better you look like a reckless, emotional kid spilling tea online than a credible witness ready to testify under pressure." King stared at him, the depth of the betrayal sinking deeper with every measured word. This wasn't simply about ego, rap beef, or clout. This was about raw survival for the untouchable man at the center, for the intricate networks he controlled, and for everyone who benefited from the enforced silence. King had been nothing more than a pawn, protected only as long as he remained usefully quiet and predictable. The second he became a visible risk, volatile, famous, and emotionally unstable, the protection evaporated, and the very people who once shielded him were now the ones ensuring he stayed contained. The man took a step back toward the elevator, his expression unchanging. Stay off the internet, stay off the phone, stay quiet. If you don't, no one will be able to help you, not me, not your father, not even 50 Cent. Because when a man like that decides there's a loose end, he doesn't negotiate, he eliminates. He disappeared down the hallway without another word, footsteps echoing faintly before vanishing completely. King stood frozen in the open doorway, jacket hanging uselessly in his hand. The apartment suddenly felt smaller, the air thicker and harder to breathe. His phone buzzed again, another anonymous warning, no doubt. He didn't bother checking it. Instead, he closed the door slowly, locked every bolt, and slid down against it until he was sitting on the cold floor, knees drawn to his chest. Everything he thought he understood, his relationship, the invisible protection he had taken for granted, his place in the chaotic world of fame and street credibility, had been nothing but illusion. His girlfriend was gone, not because she had simply stopped loving him, but because someone had made certain she saw the full scope of the danger in staying connected to him. 50 Cent wasn't the primary villain in this story. He had been used as a precise tool. The real architect of this calculated collapse had been much closer all along, someone who had smiled to his face while quietly sharpening the knife. And somewhere out there in the shadows of Atlanta, the untouchable man was watching, waiting, calmly deciding whether King Harris was still worth the risk of leaving alive. Desperate, King grabbed his phone again, fingers trembling so badly he nearly dropped it, and dialed the one family friend he still believed he could trust, the one who had warned him early on about the dangers of poking powerful forces. For the first time ever, the call didn't ring. It didn't even go to voicemail. A cold, automated message played instead. The number you are trying to reach has been restricted. Restricted, not simply blocked by a carrier, shut down, cut off, erased by someone with enough power and influence to make entire lines of communication vanish instantly. Dread punched through King's chest like a fist. Then he heard it. A soft, deliberate knock on the front door. Not loud, not frantic, not angry, just 3 even taps. Tap, tap, tap. King froze, every muscle in his body locked. His breath stopped completely. The knock came again. Tap, 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 perfect rhythm, signature. It carried the unmistakable calling card of the man whose name stayed unspoken, the one King had crossed without ever intending to. He backed up slowly, whispering to himself, no, no way, he wouldn't come here himself. But then the voice came through the door, low, silky, calm, and terrifyingly composed. Open the door, King. We need to talk. King's legs nearly buckled beneath him. The room spun. His throat closed tight. It wasn't shouted. It wasn't demanded with force. It was the voice of someone who never needed to raise his tone because true power didn't yell. True power whispered and expected obedience. King stood frozen in place, tears forming in his eyes because he understood the gravity instantly. If this man had come personally, it wasn't for mere intimidation. It wasn't another test. It was the final stage. He backed up until his shoulders hit the wall, breath coming in short gasps. The voice continued, unruffled and patient. You've caused me a bit of a problem. Let's fix it together. King whispered to himself, voice breaking, I'm dead, I'm dead, I'm dead. Then came the twist that turned everything inside out. I'm not here because of what you saw, the man said calmly. I'm here because of who you talked to. King's breath caught sharply. Talked to? The betrayal, the mentor, the girlfriend who left. Who? You said one sentence to one person, the man continued, his tone never wavering, and that person told the wrong ear. That's why I'm here. King's mind raced desperately. What sentence? To whom? Then the man delivered the shattering truth with surgical calm. You told a secret to someone who was already working for me. King's eyes widened in pure horror. No, no way. The man wasn't finished. And that person has fed me every detail, every fear, every message, every apology, every panic attack, every attempt you've made to fix this. King's heart plummeted. The betrayer wasn't the mentor figure. It wasn't the family friend. It wasn't even 50 Cent playing a long game. It was someone far closer. Someone who knew his daily routines, his deepest weaknesses, his insecurities, and every vulnerability he had ever shown. Someone who had comforted him through the worst moments. Someone he had believed in completely and without reservation. King's voice cracked as he forced the question out. Who? A long, gut-wrenching silence stretched across the closed door. Then the final, devastating blow landed. You already know who it is. Think about who left you first. King's blood turned to ice in his veins. His girlfriend. The one he thought was innocent. The one he thought was terrified and fleeing to protect herself. The one he had begged to stay. She hadn't been running from danger. She had been working for it all along. Before King could fully process the betrayal at that crushing depth, the man added quietly, She knows I'm here. She told me you opened the door. King staggered, the room tilting violently. She wasn't a victim. She wasn't scared. She wasn't manipulated into leaving. She was the insider, the leak, the mole, the one who had guided this dangerous man straight to his doorstep with precision. King whispered, voice breaking completely, She set me up. Through the wood of the door, the man smiled. King could almost hear it in his tone. Open the door, King. If this were a scripted video or dramatic series, the screen would cut to black here. Because what happens next has the power to change everything. The public exposure, the layered betrayals, the creeping danger, the powerful man standing just beyond the threshold, and the gut-punch realization that the person King loved and trusted most had deliberately handed him over to the lion's den. This isn't drama anymore. This isn't petty rap beef or clout chasing gone wrong. This is betrayal engineered from the inside out. Manipulation by forces far beyond anything King ever understood or prepared for. A young man discovering too late that he was nothing more than a pawn in a shadow game, and the players aren't finished with him yet. The story isn't over. It's expanding in real time. The door is still closed. The clock is still ticking. And the truth waiting on the other side is darker, more calculated, and more personal than anything that has come before.